Top of the morning to you. This is Monday with Friday, wishing for you a great week ahead. Last Monday, Andy Burnham became Britain's Prime Minister, the 7th in a decade. Now, that's some kind of record. We wish him well. To what extent can this British mess be traced to Brexit, and to what extent the real itch underlying Brexit was something less noble than economic concerns is probably debatable, even if obvious to conscientious onlookers. In a recent Atlantic article that he may well have entitled "London Bridge Has Fallen Down," 𝐁𝐨𝐠𝐞𝐲𝐦 recounts an investigative visit he made to Britain. His headline is instead entitled, quote, "How Britain Became as Poor as Mississippi," unquote. It possesses clearly an economic focus, but somewhere in the middle of that article, the real issue underlying Britain's devolution emerges. Mississippi, of course, is America's poorest state, and Britain's GDP rests slightly above Mississippi's. Colloon ends the article this way, quote, "What broke Britain was not Brussels' bad luck or bankers. The British broke Britain. To mend it, they must first stop breaking it further," unquote. But get this, Colloon never once mentions in that article that Mississippi is one of America's most racist states. He doesn't have to. Given some content in the article, I would have added 2 words in his final sentence that would have made it read this way, quote, "What broke Britain was not Brussels, bad luck, bankers, or immigrants," unquote. Colloon reports on a multiplicity of factors, including Brexit, which should be understood more as voters' reaction to causes that added to the causes of Britain's fall. The filthy algae growing in a shallow pool in America's capital may appropriately reflect to the whole world America's current ugly truths, delivered by voters' shallow wisdom in November of 2024. Among them are presidential corruption, Pentagon incompetence, DOJ deceitfulness, lawlessness, Supreme Court deceitfulness and lawlessness, and evangelicals' apostasy. But there are also some disturbing movements developing across the pond. Colloon is amazed that Nigel Farage, Brexit creator, appears to have a significant chance of becoming Prime Minister next elections. Farage's proposed Operation Restoring Justice is his version of America's ICE, with Zia Yusuf, a wealthy businessman and the son of Sri Lankan immigrants, as the head. Yusuf may be to Farage what Stephen Miller is to the American presidential criminal. Farage names among Britain's problem for which he claims to have solutions unwanted immigrants. He frequently claims as a trinity of evils, quote, "the feckless elites, the ineffective civil servants, and the unwanted immigrants," unquote. There's a pattern forming here. Let me place it in a question. Have Europe, England, and America figured out yet the root cause of the immigrant crises they face? I say it's not illegal immigration. In the long history of human civilization, illegal immigration never became a thing until relatively yesterday. Immigration has always been a human response to hardship, more so in America than in England. And all the people who wave their Bibles and beat other people over their heads with it should recall that Jacob, who became Israel, immigrated to Egypt precisely because of economic hardship and hunger. Things that would make anybody, anywhere in history, move across state and geographical lines. But back to England and America. England and America, along with much of Europe, are historically, hear me now, historically causative agents of migration. I'll say that again. England and America, along with much of Europe, are historically causative agents of migration. The supposedly civilized global north, from time immemorial, has used might, supremacy, imperialism, occupationalism, plundering, and violence to subdue the global South, the very places from which the immigrants that Farage disparages and the current U.S. administration targets for wickedness, and the latter, America, does such wicked things such as feeding ICE detainees in Texas, including infants, food filled with maggots, and denying them health care and even sleep. No matter how much revisionist history is being written, facts are that England, Europe, and America have for centuries enacted policies or actions that have unleashed untold hardships, entrenched injustices, and generational disadvantages on people in India, Asia, and Africa, peoples they discovered in the Caribbean and the Americas, and upon peoples they forcibly brought to the Caribbean and Americas from Africa. These African, Asian, Central American, and South American and Caribbean peoples and regions are the usual territories whose people flee hardships just as white Americans' ancestors fled persecution or hardships of one kind or another in Europe. Some of them merely sailed into America not from hardship, but just seeking upward mobility. So it's high time that Britain, Europe, and America stop making immigrants their bogeyman, targeting them as national problems and scourges. People like Yusuf in England and Kash Patel and Marco Rubio in America ought to be ashamed of themselves. And Elon Musk, who got wealthy off of state money, should have something worse than an Ebenezer Scrooge scare and much longer and real than a nightmare happen to him. No greater evidence of the evils I have addressed here exists in that the world's only trillionaire, an American and an immigrant, is responsible for the impoverishment, sickness, and deaths of so many of the world's poorest, sickest, hungriest, and neediest, all in many of the same countries from which their people flee to the very land whose evil president gave this heartless reprobate Elon Musk the clearance to do it. The only thing worse than all of this is that people like Al Mohler, Robert Jeffress, Paula White, and most white evangelicals, and some black ones too, and some peoples in some of these very countries from which immigrants come who love Trump, uphold all of this as their values, and in so doing are happily nailing Jesus to the cross once again. And now a personal note. Next month's episode will mark the 6th anniversary since this program was launched. After that, I intend not to appear weekly or monthly, but only when I really have something to say. So thank you for staying with me and for continuing to subscribe, view, and share these messages. But for now, I am Michael Friday, and your week just got better. I'll see you again next month. Happy Monday. All the bouncy way to Friday.